Hospitality Meets is brought to you by RotaCloud, the simple workforce management software for hospitality teams. RotaCloud lets you create and share rotas, record attendance, and manage your team's annual leave, all in less time than it takes to make a brew. It can also make life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request holiday, and even pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be. Welcome to Hospitality Meets with me, Phil Street, where each week we take a light-hearted look into the stories and individuals that make up the wonderful world of hospitality. Today's guest is Bharti Radix, founder of the quite wonderful Bloom's Yard. Coming up on today's show, Bharti gives us a lowdown on her experience of the podcast.
Oh my god, this was amazing.
Phil gets all action.
Right, go. Go.
And Bharti tells us of peril to come.
I should have been more worried about it than I was.
All that and so much more as we chat through Bharti's magnificent story so far. This really is a cracking chat from start to finish, with lessons around career building, entrepreneurship and courage. Bharti's journey is also a wonderful reminder as to what happens when you find your passion and identity. A massive thank you to her for her time and hosting this chat at the Bloom's Yard in Liverpool Street. Enjoy.
And a huge Hospitality Meets welcome to Bharti Radix.
Hello, how are you?
I'm all right, how are you?
I'm doing well.
Excellent. Where do we find ourselves today?
So, 100 Liverpool Street, which was our second site opened, and actually it's our third birthday. So here we are in this wonderful, thank you, in this wonderful huge site, which is a bit of a whirlwind because I think back on it and I wonder 3 years ago how I managed to get this site when we were pretty much a non-existent business. So it feels a little strange, but I'm very happy that we got the site and that we're still here and that it's doing well.
Yeah, it's stunning. A really, really stunning site. I'm sure we'll get into the story of how that all came to be through the fullness of your journey. Just tell the world what it is that you do for a living.
So I'm the founder of Bloom's Yard. Bloom's Yard is a cafe wine bar concept. We are a business that started in COVID. So
sensible.
The business is I think that's 4 years old now. So 4 years ago, there we were in lockdown 1 and Bloom's Yard was born with me at home writing in a notebook all of my ideas and then it just happened from there basically.
Right.
But yeah, so cafe wine bar, you can get specialty coffee, well-being tea, wine, and then all the foodie bits to go with that. So cake, pastries, cookies, fresh sandwiches and salads, and then with the wine in the evenings or any time of the day really, what we call picky things, which is my take on grazing platters.
Right, got you. So a very sociable concept then in that regard, if you're lots of sharing plates and that type of thing.
Yeah, well, I hope so. And that's what I want it to be. You know, if you look on our website, the first kind of strap line says that we're an escape from the hustle and bustle. And that's what I wanted to create with Bloom's Yard, to be, you know, a place to go and be relaxed, chill out, have really great food and drink, and be, you know, that could be on your own, or it could be with friends, or having a meeting or something like that.
Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, well, I mean, I suppose that having done a tiny bit of research on you and your background, what I love about your background is that you, I suppose from an entrepreneurial perspective, don't necessarily conform to the usual route of an entrepreneur, if there is such a thing. Mm. Your background is in finance, by the looks of things.
Yeah.
So take us all the way back. And I'm super excited about this for a number of reasons. One is that we've not really had anybody with a finance background on the show before. But two, I'm really interested to understand where the entrepreneurial spirit came from within that. So, yeah, take us back to the beginning of your career. How did you get into hospitality in the first place?
Okay, so obviously went to uni, did business studies, preferred the finance route of that. And that was in Leicester, which is my hometown. So did all of that and then got to looking for my first role after graduating and decided Leicester wasn't the place for me to stay.
Right.
You know, if I wanted the big job in the big company doing lots of exciting things, I felt like I had to move to London. So I did that. And my first job actually, in London was for a music company. So I was their kind of financial accountant. I did that for a couple of years. And then I was looking for a change. Now I was in the city big bright lights and all of that. I wanted to wanted to get into something else. And I kind of fell into hospitality.
Well, never heard that one before.
I didn't really know. I was with recruitment agencies and one of them came up with this job as a senior management accountant for a chef. And I didn't know who he was, but I went along and it was Jamie Oliver. Obviously, I'd done my research before, so I knew who it was by the time I got to the interview. But, he wasn't, and, that was so long ago that it wasn't someone that everybody knew at the time. That just came straight after. And I think, I got the job and I started in the industry then, and I just didn't really even know too much about it. Hadn't eaten out at so many places or tried many different things, but that's what really changed it for me when I started working for Jamie. And our office was above the one restaurant he had at the time then, which was in Old Street, and it was 15, right? Yeah. So so this, we're talking all the way before Jamie's Italian was even a thing. There was just this one brand.
Yeah, and it was actually kind of socially conscious-minded, wasn't it?
Definitely. So
if I remember rightly.
Yeah, so it had the charity side of it linked, which I was also looking after. So, and that was the apprentice scheme. So, young people that needed a second chance for whatever reason, and, for them to be joining this program and learning to be, professional chefs. And it was fab, and I loved everything about it. From the whole apprentice side to the whole, just trying different foods and learning and, and from that point onwards, I was like, I'm never working in another industry again.
Really? It was you were that struck?
Yeah. Well, I was with Jamie for 5 years then.
Right.
And, we went from, 15 restaurant to then Jamie's Italian. So it was like one restaurant and then some franchised 15s. And then, Barbacoa. And in between that, there was Union Jacks. And it was absolutely mental. Yeah.
Well, at that point in time, I think he was in that phase where everything he touched turned to gold, right?
Yeah,
it was just because
totally.
it was brand Jamie, really, and anything that he, because he was doing the school dinners thing then as well.
And Ministry of Food and School Kitchen Gardens. That was all I was involved in all sorts of bits and bobs there. So over 5 years, loads happened. But as he grew, so did my career progression, as well. So I went from, I joined as senior management accountant, then I was financial controller, then I was head of finance, for the whole restaurant side, reporting into the group CEO then. So it was crazy, mad, fantastic time.
Yeah.
And I always look back on my time there, that 5 years, it was roller coaster, but had so much fun.
Well, I suppose there's probably a few things in play. The roller coaster element means you're probably just learning constantly.
Yeah.
Which is great as long as you're that way minded, I suppose.
Yeah. As long as you're ready to, roll up your sleeves and get involved, there's so much to learn. So it doesn't matter if you're, you've got your finance hat on. When it's a small head office team of a business that's just going crazy with growth, you just get involved in everything. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If something needs to be done and you are that way minded, you'll just get involved and then learn even more anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. So 5 years there. What happened next? How did you move from there?
And then I did a short stint at Berry Brothers and Rudd, so the wine merchant. So that was fab. It was in this number 3 St James, so close to the palace, this really old building. But so did a bit of kind of wine, champagne, spirits. And then I got my first finance director role with the Draft House. So I joined them when they had about 3 sites, I think. And 3.5 years later, we'd grown to 16 sites.
Right.
And
you like your fast growth companies then, don't you?
Yeah, it's not like I set out to do any of that. It just kind of happened. So and then we sold to Brewdog. So that was crazy. So in that 3.5 years at Draft House, we were buying businesses, so a small pub group, and transforming those into draft houses. And then we did the sale as well.
Right.
So as finance director, that was a few big ticks on my CV.
Yeah, I was going to say that's, again, you're in a situation whereby you're probably learning new things to add into the mix of your CV.
Yeah, and it's not like in any, so definitely at Draft House, I didn't have anybody finance above me, so there was nobody I could go and ask. Right. On how to do, so actually, it was a really, really tough time because I'd gone in to that role as the inexperienced FD, and I was told that quite often in my time there.
Great.
But,
Thanks for the confidence boost.
Yeah, I know, right? So, but I was just determined to, do that role and do it well. I was in way above my head, looking back on it now, but I just wanted to keep going. I just wanted to, do a good job.
I think you can be in way over your head though, as long as you're, I suppose, surrounded by people who perhaps know that and then will support you in that process as well. If you're in over your head and you're just left to get on with it or to your own devices, then that can be I suppose a tricky place to be.
But actually when I was hired, I was, so that was a business where Luke Johnson was the investor. He was the chairman and an investor. And being then part of that group allowed me to connect with other FDs or CFOs in the Luke Johnson businesses.
Right.
And actually, they were my support.
Yeah.
So they were the people. So I'd be introduced to an FD of here or a CFO of here or whatever. And, I'd be able to call them up or meet up with them for help and guidance.
Yeah. That's also, that struck me as from your notes that you very kindly filled out before as well. It was also one of your scariest experiences.
Yeah, I mean, board meetings, they were quite intense.
Right. I was going to ask what made them particularly scary. Was it was Luke?
Yeah.
Right.
If he's listening to this now. Yeah.
I hope he is. That would be lovely.
Yeah, it was a scary time, but it was just the kind of intensity of everything that of me having to perform in those meetings. And, I was always constantly like, I'll never be able to remember anything or everything that he might ask me. And then it was like feeling scared of not being able to give the answer or give the right answer or be right anyway. And I'd go in with like folders across the table in case I needed to like look something up quickly, and then like there'd be this disappointment from across the table of me like flitting through papers to be able to give the answer. But a lot of that time, and I can only say this now because I've had time to digest and understand, and a lot of that time it was just pure anxiety that made me sometimes not even be able to speak.
Really? Right.
Like if I was asked a question, I might just say, I don't know, where I totally did know.
Right, but it was just because you were rabbit in the headlights type scenario. But then I suppose, again, as you say, with the ability to look back on these moments, you probably don't appreciate it in the time that you're in, but these uncomfortable moments are the things that actually really help you move forward, don't they? I mean, totally. At the time you might be a little bit out of your depth, but that's it's the uncomfortable zone, isn't it? That's what we all try to run away from, but in actual fact we should be probably embracing it as much as we can. Yeah,
and so what I can tell you about that, the understanding I can tell you about that now helps me in how I am with my team and how I develop people, and because I have that understanding of what it was like for me then. So I try to use that now with my team and how I can kind of progress them and push them forward without them having those kind of anxiety moments.
Well, although maybe they'll look back in 10 years' time but if your boardroom meetings are a little bit more user friendly, then that also serves its purpose, right?
Yeah. So, although I don't have board meetings because there's only me.
Right, you are the board.
Exactly.
Right. I mean, that's a great board.
Which actually I really like. Yeah. Because it's that's part of why I went this way. I think in terms of me becoming the founder of Bloomsyard and growing this business, because actually now I can just do what I want to do.
Right.
Yeah, and if I make mistakes along the way, it's on me.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've been through such a journey with working in growing businesses and making mistakes and just having to answer to people and those feelings of anxiety and all of that. Now I just do it for myself. Yeah.
Well, I would imagine that there's still some anxiety, but in a very different way. And as you said, you're master of your own destiny in that respect. You choose whether you bring your own anxiety, I suppose, or somebody else is bringing it to you.
Yeah, and I mean, the whole story of Bloomsyard, though, like you'd think when I tell my story, you'd think that I should have been more worried about it than I was.
Right.
Because if you think back to lockdown 1, all right, at the beginning, everyone was like, oh, yeah, this will be over in like 2 weeks and we'll just
Yes,
get on
yes.
with like normal life and we'll just get over it. Well, actually, there I was, found myself going into lockdown unemployed, not meaning to go into lockdown thinking I was going to start a business or anything. But, you know, I'd had a couple of job interviews and then they were just put on hold for this kind of 2 week and then we'll get back to it. And there we were, quietly sitting at home and nothing to think about because I didn't have a job to worry about, you know. And then in those days decided that actually, did I want to go into another job where I might, you know, experience any of these things again? And, you know, like, because the last job that I'd had just before lockdown was really stressful. I'd only been in it for like 11 months and I was like totally burnt out and it was just a horrible 11 months.
Right.
So, you know, I'd kind of quit and then gone into lockdown unemployed. So, and then, yeah, so sitting at home thinking, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to do that anymore, ever. But so I spoke to my husband and he was like, oh, just what do you want to do? Just do what you want to do. It doesn't really matter, you know, because I'd actually, you know, progressed my career quite quickly in a fairly short space of time. So, you know, what was I going to do next? And actually, all that was shouting out at me, and, you know, over the years, I'd be like, oh, imagine if I had my own something, and it'd be something hospitality. So it could be like pub or restaurant or bar or cafe or something. But I never really thought that I'd actually be able to do it. And there I was writing in this big red notebook all my ideas of like names and what the menu would be like and what it would look like and how it would feel, and then it basically just came from my notes in that book.
Right. Yeah.
And then I just did it. So really, you know, and that was a time when hospitality was on its absolute knees, you know, closing sites and people being made redundant and all of that. And there I was saying, I'm going to open my own hospitality business.
So where did this confidence come from? That actually this is the time for me to do this?
I don't know. And that's the worrying bit, isn't it? Because I'm kind of like, I should have been, you know, I was such a risk taker and I was so brave with it. And I can't believe it sometimes that I just went ahead and did it. But it's all I wanted to do. So I just went for it. And it didn't start off as a site or anything because, you know, everyone was in lockdown. So it started off as a website selling tea, coffee and wine online. And actually in lockdown, people were just ordering stuff to be delivered to enjoy at home anyway.
Yeah.
So that worked. And it wasn't that I started that thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to have this site and that site. I just started with that and it just started me going. And then a site came up and I was like, you know, that was close to my home in Watford. So it was in the shopping centre. So I was like, actually, it's close by. I can take a small site. I can just test it. Let's just test it. And there were deals to be done then. You know, landlords had like so many empty spaces and stuff.
Yeah.
There were really good deals to be done.
Right.
So I took it and then, and then, you know, all of a sudden I had a real site. So if Bloomshield was born, let's say in April 20, my first site opened in September 20.
Okay. Well, I mean, that's still not a huge amount of time difference,
No.
especially in the time that we were in, which it was so fluctuating everywhere.
You couldn't go anywhere or do anything.
Yeah.
And actually, so I'm saying the idea was born in April. By the time I had that website up and running, it was like end of May or something.
Yeah.
And then actually, this site, Liverpool Street, I actually came to see it in June 20 as a building site.
Really?
I know, it's so random.
Crikey. Did you have a vision at that point or something that saying I'm going to be in here? This is the one for me.
So this is the great thing about my experience to date, because as you know, as finance director, I was used to putting together like a landlord pack.
Right. Yeah, of course.
And so when I was building this website, I was like taking pictures. So I had nothing to take pictures of. So taking pictures from Pinterest and Google of what I thought Bloomshield would look like.
Right.
So I had all of this ready. So as I built this website, at the same time, I built this landlord pack. And having worked, you know, been paying rent to landlords for all these various different companies I'd worked for, I had lots of contacts around London, so all the big London landlords. So I sent out this landlord pack to everybody I could think of, all of the big ones. And just one came back to me, which was British Land.
I mean, it's not a bad one to come back.
And it was Alice, and I didn't know Alice. I hadn't worked with Alice, but you know, our teams probably had worked together at some point, whether I'd been at Jamie's or Draft House or wherever. So, and she was like, okay, let's get on a Zoom call. So she'd seen my pack, and we had this Zoom call, and she was like, yeah, well, what are you looking for? And she was talking about 3 different options at that point. Well, we've got this. Would you be interested in looking at this? And I thought, oh, Liverpool Street, that sounds good. So she's like, well, yeah, we could do a viewing if you want. It's still a bit of a building site, but I could show you around. So it was still social distancing and all of that. So we viewed this site in June 20 when I had like nothing. It's kind of unheard of because I had no trading history and I had nothing.
That's remarkable to actually. But actually, I find stuff like this kind of really uplifting, because really what you're talking about here as to your major wins. Okay, yes, you've got experience within boardrooms of high level finance, and you know how these people speak and the language that they talk, so that you can speak to that. But at the same time, you kind of just have had the courage of your conviction and just gone, well, there's nothing that replaces action, right? So you just do it and then see where it takes us.
So there I was in June doing this like social distance, PPE'd up on this building site. And I was like, yeah, I really love it. Like, let's do it. So I was starting to do that deal before I even had my first site.
Right.
And then at the same time, I was getting this Watford one going. So then Watford opened in September 20. And then this one opened the May after, once all the building work was done and everything. Yep. And when we did open this one in May 21, it was still takeaway only. So, I mean, that was super tough. And we're inside, as you've now seen. We don't have a front door. We're an unknown brand.
Yeah, you don't walk past and go, oh, that looks good.
I'll grab a coffee or something. Yeah. So it took quite a while to build up, because also brand new building as well. So it wasn't even fully let, but that was part of the deal, right? So we would be there for prospective tenants to see, that we were there and operating, and
give it a bit of life.
Yeah. So again, I got a good deal because of all of these factors. And then kind of strangely, in 3 years, I opened 6 sites.
Right. You're up to 6 now.
Well, I closed the one at Watford, the first one,
right,
at the shopping centre. So I've got 5 now. But yeah, in 3 years I opened 6. So it was...
My word. See, this is... we've actually missed out a chunk of your story as well, haven't we?
I know, I just jumped from there.
No, that's fine. That doesn't matter. We'll come back and cover that quickly. But yeah, I'm flummoxed is the word, in fact, in a really, really positive way, because this to me kind of highlights that there is really no right or wrong way to do it. There is only the way that you know how. Yeah. And you've just gone kind of all in, it feels like. Is there any part of you, or was there any part of you that was, what am I doing? Like, would you ever feel like I've taken on too much too quickly? This is ridiculous. I need to peg it back.
Yeah. Last year was a pretty tough year.
Right.
So I opened sites 5 and 6, which was Marble Arch and Finsbury Avenue, just around the corner from here. And yeah, last year was super tough. And that was the year where I was just like, was this right? Like, I've let go my, secure permanent job of a salary coming in and all of that. And it gets scary when you're wondering if you can pay payroll and stuff. We're all right now. Yeah. But, there was a time last year where I was just like, oh my God. And also just the recruitment has been so tough. It's like one of the worst things that me and my team have to deal with all the time. Just people coming and going, and you just can't get a steady team. And last year was really tough, but I started this year. So I started January just saying, this year is the one where I just need to be calm and sustain and grow from what I've got, rather than going crazy. Because I could open another site, at any one time, I've got 20 new sites in my inbox. Really? Yeah, honestly, it's crazy. Whether it's agents that will do that anyway, or landlords saying, oh, do you want this? Do you want this? What do you think about this? And, there's this temptation of oh yeah, well, I could do that one. And actually, I have to hold myself back and try to be calm and just say, actually, I don't want another year like last year. And I just need to make sure that the 5 current sites that I have right now, they're just all, making money and growing. And then I'll think about further growth.
Right. Yeah. Well, maybe that's part of the natural cycle of being an entrepreneur, is that when you come into it, you're all action. everything, right? Go, 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 go. Yeah, that sounds great. Let's do that. Yeah, bang. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, well, I mean, there's also other factors in play, right? I mean, last year, nobody really could have probably foreseen all of the different challenges that businesses faced, all coming to a head in one hit.
Yeah.
So, that's not on you at all. That's that's just a general world thing, and it is a general world thing. It's not even just a UK thing.
Yeah.
So that then teaches you the lesson, right? It's like, okay, let's just consolidate what we have and make sure that is firing as well as it can fire, and then you're going to be in a much better position down the line to bring on that new site or sites, because you've got that lovely stable foundation.
5-star hospitality means having the right people in the right place at the right time, and that's exactly where RotaCloud can help. RotaCloud is the online platform that makes planning rotas, recording attendance, and managing annual leave easy. Its simple, drag-and-drop interface lets you create and share rotas with your team in minutes, while our built-in budgeting tools mean you'll know exactly how much you're spending on staffing before sending the rota out. RotaCloud also makes life easier for your staff, allowing them to check their rotas, request time off, and pick up extra shifts, all through the RotaCloud mobile app. Start your 30-day free trial today by visiting rotacloud.com/Phil and find out how much easier managing your team can be.
But the other thing as well about last year is that I tried to grow my head office team for the first time.
Right.
So, I kind of got to, probably at the beginning of last year, I'd probably at 4 sites, and then I opened these other 2. And then all this time, it's only been me at head office.
Yeah.
So, I'm not going to get anyone else in to do finance. I could do that standing on my head, at this stage.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't have any investors. So, I haven't just got money to spend on salaries of various.
You have to really, really, yes, this is the time to do this particular position.
If I can do it, because I've got that understanding of finance and systems and all of that reporting and everything together, I feel like the way that I've set everything up is quite streamlined in that way. So, all the tills are the same, all of the reporting works the same, there's no cash in the business, we're cardless everywhere. So that makes quite a difference in terms of, there's not all the reconciliations to do for that. There's, it takes me, as long as I've kept on top of posting invoices and stuff during the week, it takes me 1 day to do my management accounts.
Right.
It's not like it's not complicated. So I just do that, and I do everything else actually, from HR to payroll to
marketing.
Yeah, so that's the worst bit ever. I
was going to say the finance people and marketing are not normally hand in hand.
No, but as an entrepreneur, with not infinite amounts of cash to spend, I had to have a dabble at that. But I can't do it. It's not me. I can do lots of other things. But so my first ever other recruit in head office was kind of sales, events, marketing in one.
Right.
So I hired somebody, and so knowing that that's not my bag, I went to an agency and hired with them so that they could guide me in who I needed and what I needed, because, I just didn't really know. So I hired somebody, and I tried and it just didn't work out.
Really?
Yeah.
Right.
So 5 months later, there I was, the only person in head office again, and then I've recruited again, and we're doing all right now. But yeah, so I do have somebody else in my head office team now who is quick on dealing with all of those inquiries that are coming in, which is great, and bringing new inquiries in, and doing show rounds of the venues for events and stuff. So that kind of helps now to boost those sales in those current sites.
Yeah, well, yeah. And allows you, I suppose, to go into your wheelhouse of, well, I suppose either business consolidation or, right, where are we going? What are we doing next?
Yeah,
that kind of thing.
And also in that time since he's joined my team as well, we've launched our online ordering for catering and stuff. So, up until then, where businesses wanted platters of sandwiches or breakfast or whatever for their meetings, it would be send them a PDF menu, and then they come back and there's probably another 20 emails until we've decided. And then I'd have to raise an invoice. And, so actually streamlining that has been massive. So now people can just go onto the website, order online, they can choose whether it's delivered to them or they come and pick it up from any of our sites. Payments taken online, and it's just like that. So,
Right.
like little things like that have really helped to pull it all together, really.
Yeah. Was that arm of the business something that you always had in your head? Was that in your red book of
The
notes?
catering?
Yeah.
No.
Right. So that
No.
came, it was concept first, and then I suppose being cold about it from a transactional business perspective, it was then revenue streams.
Well, yeah, and actually it's this site that brought that about.
Right.
Because we're inside this office building, this office development, and there's meeting rooms and stuff. So I was working with the team here to put a catering menu together for those meeting rooms. And then it was working really well. And it actually was just building and building. And I was like, we can do this from other sites. And so we did.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it came from that. And I didn't, when I first drew up all of my ideas, I didn't think about catering and I didn't think about events either. I thought maybe like evening wine drinkers and all that, but not like really like exclusive hire for events or networking events and things like that. And actually they are the things that make this business work, because on its own we wouldn't make enough money.
Really? Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I need those other revenue streams to make the model work.
Right. Got it. That's interesting actually to hear that, and I suppose is a good lesson in itself that the being very simple about it is concept development. You've taken the initial idea and you've evolved it into what it needs to become in order for it to be successful.
Yeah, so the everyday counter sales, they're not enough. And it's also because, again, we're an unknown brand and, like we get lost behind the Pretz and the Starbucks and the,
It's a
all of those.
competitive space, isn't it, in that market?
It is. And, like they're so big and in your face and so well known that we get overlooked.
Yeah.
So until we get much bigger and much more in everybody's face, I need those other revenue streams to make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic journey so far, but let's go back and just fill in the little bit. So Luke Johnson boardrooms through to now. What else did you get up to in that time?
So after we sold to Brewdog, I stayed around and helped the Brewdog team integrate the two businesses for a little while, a couple of months, and then I took a summer off, which was great. That was 2018, and we had a lovely summer. I spent time with my daughters, two girls. And then I went back to, so I had the summer off and then I was like looking for my next permanent role. But in between, the team back at Jamie's needed someone to come and fill an interim 3-month gap because they'd hired their new CFO, but she wasn't available until 3 months because she's working out her notice or whatever. So I was like, yeah, I'll come and help you. I'd love to come back, a special place in my heart. Was Jamie's, and then so I went back for that 3 months and I built them a cash flow model and could see that the business was struggling at that time, which felt very sad. And then so I did that for 3 months, handed over to the new CFO, and then I went and worked for Coffee Smiths Collective. So if you haven't heard of them, they basically had lots of different independent brands and they were buying up the place basically at the time when I joined. But what was happening there is that they were buying lots of distressed businesses.
Right. That brings a lot of stress into the...
That distressed me.
Yeah, it did.
So, there's so much to tidy up, and buying one distressed business, after another, it just took its toll. I mean, tidying up balance sheets and there's a reason that they were going into administration or whatever, those businesses that we were buying up. And I thought I would just keep trying to fix it. But I couldn't do that on my own.
Right.
And I was like literally working every second that I was awake, evenings and weekends and everything, like never seeing my children.
Yeah, it's not sustainable, is it?
Yeah, so 11 months later, that was that. And we were trying to raise money at the same time, and it was absolutely mental. So we were working on we were doing these pitch decks and these management presentations, and it was just absolutely crazy. And almost got this investment that was like 65 million, which then something went wrong right at the end between the investors, and then that fell away, and it was just like, oh my God, I just can't do this again.
Yeah, but I suppose looking at the positives, I guess it's one thing to be at the helm from a financial perspective of a business that's doing well, another to be in a position that's, you know, on its knees or whatever, teaches you a different skill set completely again, prepares you for if that ever happens again in the future, perhaps in that regard. And I actually use a kind of very, very crass sporting allusion here, but I'm a massive football fan, massive Liverpool fan. I've said that on this podcast before. That's not news. And Liverpool are about to change managers. Jurgen Klopp, who's very famous, who's you know, we're all still heartbroken about the fact that he's going. But the part of the process in that change is that actually sometimes when you're looking for somebody to take the helm of a new or an ongoing business, is that actually you need somebody who's got a multitude of skills. Not just being at the helm when things are rosy. You know, how do you react when, to use the sporting term, you're in a relegation fight? How do you react in a business term when you're in distress? So to gain that experience is, hopefully you never have to experience it too often, but at least you kind of now know that you've got exposure to it and you know what you're capable of in that time.
Yes, and that I know that I never want to be there again.
Very good. And well, that's good in itself, isn't it? Because it then teaches you that let's do everything that we can to make sure that we're never in that position.
Yeah. And actually, that's probably what drives me now for the beginning of this year to say, okay, let's not get crazy. Let's work with what we've got and make this work, rather than going out and opening another 2 or 3 sites or something this year, because I think we would then be distressed.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Without COVID, do you think you'd be here?
No.
Really? That simple?
Yeah, because I think if COVID hadn't come along, I wouldn't have, number one, had the quiet time to think about what did I really want from the bottom of my heart, you know?
Yeah.
Like, what did I really want to do? Number two, I wouldn't have been given the opportunities in terms of sites and stuff. You know, like a space like this at Liverpool Street, in normal circumstances, would have gone out to tender to, like, I don't know, like 10 or 12, I don't know, companies, probably. I didn't have to do any of that. I just kind of, like, came along.
Wins.
But, you know, I just kind of came along and had the conversations and that was that. And I think I wouldn't have got it. You know, it is unheard of, isn't it, that somebody with no trading history, like, is not even a business yet, gets sites like this.
For sure. And it's a really high-profile site, right? I mean, about as prime as it gets for Liverpool Street in terms of real estate. But do you think that comes down to ultimately then in the end it's about people and the fact that the British land and the people that you deal with there saw and met you, saw your energy and vigour for what you're trying to achieve. And it's almost a case of, well, we like this person and we like what they're trying to achieve, so let's give them the platform to help them do it.
There's definitely that element to it. So yes, I was in a unique situation where I was willing to take a risk probably when no one else wasn't ready to do that. But also, like, I do say to people all the time, like, your network is so important. So, you know, when I was having that Zoom call with British Land, we talked a lot about where I'd worked, who I'd worked with, who they knew, what I'd done, and they could see that, you know, there was like real evidence of the work that I'd done and what I could achieve. And that also, I think that got me to the viewing in the first place. Yeah. Because had we have not had all of that, why would they? I think
that was your trading history, basically.
Yeah.
And where you've worked and the things that you've done and had exposure to.
Yeah. So all of my career so far was like my work experience and my, you know, my proof that I could do it.
Yeah. No regrets?
No, I mean, look, everyone's always like, oh, do you regret, like, leaving that kind of, you know, CFO role? And the only bit is missing the money.
Right. But I still believe to this day, and maybe I'm stupidly naive for thinking this, but I think if you're pursuing something with passion and vigour that you love to do, then the money will take care of itself at some point down the line.
Yes, at some point it will. So, and actually only a couple of days ago, I was at home speaking to my husband and I was like, I don't think I could go back to an office job sitting in front of a computer all day. You know, like what I do right now, I spend time in all of my sites day to day and chatting to the team and coming up with new, like, maybe products or something. And it's so exciting.
Yeah.
I love it. You know?
Well, that's your boardroom right
Yeah.
there, right out front. But what better way, right? I mean, this is the wonders of modern business as well, is with the tech that we have at our disposal to do business day to day. What better place to be than sit in the sites that you are looking after and get a sense of what's flowing and what's working and what's not, and you just get to see it day to day.
Yeah, and also, you know, without that, I don't know, without, like, maybe if I was in an office role and then going into sites and stuff, like working for somebody else, I don't think I'd pick up on half the stuff that's going on because I wouldn't be so involved in it. Yeah. Whereas here, like, I can walk in and you know, I'm not like saying, oh, this is wrong, whatever. But, you know, I know how I want it to be because it's my vision.
Mm. Yeah. So. Yeah. And your P&L could tell you something, but actually by being there, you just get better.
Well, my P&L does tell me everything.
Yeah.
You know, like in those ways. And because of my finance background, I'm on the numbers all the time, constantly monitoring what's selling, what's not selling, how much, you know, how have we done versus the same day last week, last year. What, you know, like all of that's just ready for me.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at that all the time, and I go through with the managers all those little bits, and in that way I hope I'm kind of teaching them that numbers side that they may not get elsewhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. Do you think you were, I mean, I'm just coming back to your points earlier on through your journey where you were always talking around what would I do if it was mine, you know, or maybe one day when I've got my own. Do you think, therefore, that you were always destined to become an entrepreneur? Did you have this fire within you that thought, I think I need to kind of do this? Or do you think it was you needed that circuit breaker in your life that was COVID to help you get there?
I mean, I've always thought about, like, owning my own business. So I do think that was that little fire in me for as long as I can remember. But I don't think that I ever really thought it would happen, that I'd actually ever do it. So, you know, on this career path of going into like accountancy and doing my accountancy qualification and, you know, just kind of running up that ladder and, you know, earning good money and stuff. And why would I? I think at some points in my career, I was like, why would I stop doing this now to go and start my own business that everyone says is like, it's so hard and it takes up all of your time and it's going to be much worse than what you're doing currently. Mm-hmm. Why would I?
Yeah, why would you?
But I think, you know, I'd got to that stage in my kind of finance career where I was just like, I think I'm done with this. Mm. I mean, I'm using it all the time still.
Of course, yeah. And in actual fact, I mean, I made the comment at the beginning of our chat around how it's not necessarily a normal, it uses inverted commas for that, trajectory for a finance person to go into the entrepreneurial space. But in actual fact, you've probably got the tool that you need the most as an entrepreneurial, especially in a founder-led business.
Yeah.
You know, it's finance first. I mean, obviously you need to be creating a culture for people who want to come and work and all of that sort of thing. But, you know, without having the know-how around how your business functions financially, you know, it's tough from there on in, isn't it, really, if you've not got a handle on that?
Because I know what the model is. You know, I know what all the margins need to be. I know what I need to tweak if the margins aren't coming out right.
Yeah.
And, you know, how to make that work and how to guide the team to make that work. I know how to cut costs if I need to. So, yeah, it's quite helpful.
Yeah, no doubt. New section of the show now. You're kind of the guinea pig, really, for this.
No.
So I asked you a question on the form around the best interview question that you've ever been asked.
Oh, yeah.
I've written it down, so don't worry, you don't have to recall it. But I want to ask you that question to see what your answer to that is.
Okay.
Can you remember what it is?
Something about doing something every day? Or...
Yeah. What is something you would be happy doing every single day for the rest of your career?
Oh, just making people happy.
I like that.
Honestly, because do you know how excited and happy I feel when we get when someone will come and say, oh my God, that was amazing coffee, thank you so much, and then they come back.
It is amazing coffee, by the way.
Thank you. But you know what, that makes everything all right. It makes everything fantastic, actually. So, you know, when somebody's had a delicious coffee, or, you know, I remember because obviously when I opened the first site in the shopping centre, I was working all the time then, and then I built up a team and stuff. So actually at that point I had to be trained as a barista. So I learned, so I knew every single job in the whole business so that I could then teach it out. And so there I was making coffee, trying to perfect my milk steaming and all of that. And I remember
little
this one...
heart on the artwork.
Exactly. It means so much.
Yeah.
And then I remember this one lady, and she'd got a takeaway flat white, and she walked off with it. And then she came back, she popped her head, and she goes, "Oh my God, this was amazing." I was like, "Thank you." And I just felt I just was like, that is why I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's hospitality right there,
Yeah.
though, isn't it? I mean, and I don't think we talk about what a wonderful thing it can be for yourself to make other people feel great.
Yeah.
That's I think there's actually science in this, that when you're kind to somebody and they're kind back, there's this whole physiological thing that happens within you, and it releases oxytocin, and you feel good.
Yes.
So there's a lesson for the world. Why don't we just be kinder to everyone?
I know.
And then there'd be none of this. But anyway, that's a podcast chat for a different story. I did ask you on the sheet. I don't know if you've had a chance to think, but do you have any funny stories from your career so far that you can share?
Oh my God, I thought about this for a really long time. I don't. I'm not saying that nothing funny's ever happened.
The story of sitting in a boardroom with Luke Johnson is good. Not many people get to do that, I suppose, in the end.
But that's not funny, though.
No, but it's certainly anecdotal from what it brought to you and the like. So
I mean, that boardroom. So I didn't say before, but there I was, the only female. So probably 8 of us around the table. The only female, the only person of colour, by far the youngest around the table.
Right. Yeah.
Now you see where it's going.
I can see.
As well as just the intensity of, the questions that would be asked, the interrogation of the numbers, and me having to be able to perform, and all of that. It was scary.
Yeah, interesting times. But actually, as well, now I think about it, I'm just coming back to your profile in my head. You do actually get involved in some extracurricular work as well, don't you, for the industry, in terms of you're involved with Be Inclusive.
Yeah.
There was another one that I forget the name of off the top of my head.
Balance the Board, it's called now.
Yeah.
So, I just think, I've got so much to give. So I try to do that with the mentoring, with Balance the Board. So that's for, specifically for females in hospitality. And then Be Inclusive, I'm on the advisory board and work closely with Lorraine, who's the founder. And we met in lockdown over Zoom calls as well.
Yeah.
So we first met when Bloomshyard was just beginning as well, and for her when Be Inclusive was just beginning. And so we've probably been on quite a journey together as well.
Yeah.
But always trying to kind of, I'll say this and everybody knows it, but maybe we don't talk about it enough, that, go to all these industry events, and there's lots of them, but it's often that there's not enough people of colour in those audiences or in those groups, and it's how do we, show that and bring them in.
Yeah.
There is that network of people that have been in the industry for a long time that might not include too many people of colour, and I want to help to bring those in.
Yeah.
I think a lot of what happens with probably in the Asian culture, so from my background, hospitality is not seen as a career. It's not that profession. So,
right.
Certainly my parents would have been like, oh, I want you to be like doctor or maybe an accountant or, something along those lines.
Yeah.
But had I have said I want to start my own cafe wine bar, I don't think they'd have been too happy or understood what that could actually be. And I think, a lot of the problems that we have with recruitment and staff turnover is because people just see being a kind of team member or a barista or something starting off in this industry as a in-between job. Well, I'll just do this until I get my real job.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I want to show people, and I try to tell all my team all the time, that there is a career development path in this. And, you can start here, then you can be a team leader, and then you can be a general manager, and actually do that with us, because we are a small business that's growing. And as I open new sites, there's going to be more and more opportunity for those kind of roles. And I would rather do the succession planning and take people from within the business and develop them into those roles if they're ready to do the time with me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I just think that's a difficulty in hospitality, that people don't see it as a kind of long-term career.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole reason why this podcast exists, is to shine a light on exactly what you've just said, is that what you might have heard out there as to what it can be to forge a career in this industry might be very different from the word that gets down from your careers advisor at school or your mum and dad or whatever. And I think it's massively important that people realise that literally, we've used this phrase so often on this podcast, but the world is your oyster, right? I mean, not just from a travel perspective, but the career trajectory it can send you on. So yeah, I take on board everything you just said there, and that probably is a lovely way to wrap it up.
Okay.
To be honest, unless there's anything else, are we missing anything? Is there anything else you want to?
I don't know. I could talk about the business for a long time, but it's probably a good place to start.
Well, I mean, I wish you all the very, very best with everything that's coming your way. I mean, this is the joy for me of running this show, but also just the joy of the industry is that, 3 years ago you didn't really exist as a business, and look at you now. And I have to say to anybody who's listening to this, if you're ever in and around Liverpool Street, just come in and have a look and have a coffee. The coffee's excellent. The setting is just delightful.
Yeah. So lucky.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I wish you all the success with your consolidation and growth.
Thank you so much.
No worries at all. Take care.
And there we have it. So many superb lessons from Bharti's story. Whether you're looking to build your career or start a business, there's definitely something for you in here. We'll be back as usual next Wednesday at 8 p.m, so have a great week, and I'll see you then.